Federal Drug Enforcement Administration says a week-long cartel crackdown led to nearly 200 arrests just in New England. The DEA says they were all members of the Sinaloa Cartel, the largest drug cartel in the world.
DEA says it's cracking down on a major drug syndicate at work in New England, the Sinaloa Cartel. In the last week, agents arrested more than 171 people in New England. The DEA seized 500-plus pounds of methamphetamine, cocaine, and fentanyl.
In early October 2025, DEA and ICE agents stormed a massive Sinaloa cartel network hidden in plain sight across New England. What began as routine surveillance exploded into the largest cartel crackdown in Boston's history. Over 200 suspects arrested, drugs, guns, and cash seized. Federal officers called it a message to every cartel in America. The war has reached your backyard.
171 arrests throughout New England. Does that make a dent?
We're the DEA. We're not going after low-level retail drug traffickers. We are going after drug trafficking organizations.
Out of the total arrests, 171 were confirmed members of the Sinaloa cartel. Massachusetts saw 49 taken into custody, Connecticut 64, and New Hampshire 33. For investigators, this marked the largest organized crime takedown ever recorded in New England's history. It was the first time a federal drug operation in the region had uncovered an active Sinaloa network functioning like a corporate branch of the cartel.
New England saw the highest number of regional arrests at 171, with 49 in Massachusetts, 33 in New Hampshire. Connecticut saw the most at 64.
Do you think people would be surprised to learn how many?
Agents seized more than 500 pounds of narcotics, including fentanyl, methamphetamine, and cocaine. Over 22,000 counterfeit pills were pulled from circulation. They found dozens of firearms, stacks of cash, and even cryptocurrency wallets linked to money laundering operations in Mexico and Asia. The figures painted a picture of a well-funded, highly organized criminal structure that was not improvising, it was expanding. Investigators discovered that Boston's outer ring suburbs had become key transit points for the cartel's operations. Warehouses that appeared legitimate were being used to store drug shipments. Delivery drivers, freight handlers, and warehouse clerks turned out to be part of a logistics chain that moved narcotics disguised as everyday freight. Agents later revealed that the same trucks used for grocery and parcel deliveries were carrying sealed bags of fentanyl between ordinary cargo pallets.
Jared Forget, the special agent in charge of DEA's New England Field Division, says last week the DEA set out to arrest as many members of the Mexico-based Sinaloa cartel as possible. New England saw the highest.
Officials called the mission America's Northern Border War. For decades, federal drug enforcement treated New England as a consumption zone rather than a trafficking corridor. This operation proved that the Sinaloa cartel had embedded itself deep within American commerce, using legitimate systems to mask its movement. The bust exposed the cartel's ability to build infrastructure in plain sight, hundreds of miles away from any border checkpoint. The operation that made it possible was named Operation New Dawn. It was planned for months by the DEA's New England Field Division under the command of Special Agent Jared Forget. Over 600 officers from federal, state, and local agencies joined forces for a synchronized 7-day siege. Among the evidence seized were 22,000 counterfeit pills marked with the Sinaloa cartel's branding. Many were purple fentanyl tablets stamped with M30 or Adderall logos to mimic legitimate pharmaceuticals. For investigators, it was another sign that the cartel had merged chemistry, marketing, and technology into a single deadly business model.
What's their number one product they push? Is it the pills?
So we see fentanyl powder and we see counterfeit pills, pills that are made to look like legitimate pills, notably M30s.
M30.
Digital forensic teams followed the trail further. They traced orders, payments, and distribution instructions across encrypted Telegram groups, Instagram direct messages, and hidden servers. The same platforms used for social networking had become digital storefronts for the drug trade. DEA analysts mapped 4 courier networks that used Uber, FedEx, and even USPS routes to deliver narcotics directly to American homes. Packages arrived through legitimate shipping lanes with falsified tracking numbers and customer labels. Fake advertisements for Adderall-like pills appeared across multiple platforms during the start of the school year. Behind each image of a bright capsule or focus booster was a deadly chemical composition. Laboratory testing confirmed that every pill contained between 2 and 5 milligrams of fentanyl, a dose lethal enough to kill a healthy adult within minutes. These were not accidental contaminations. They were deliberate formulations designed for addiction and dependency.
Pills are counterfeit oxycodone, but Forget says they're also increasingly seeing counterfeit stimulant pills made to look like Adderall.
Agents also discovered that cartel engineers were using AI-generated product descriptions and graphics to design fake brand names and marketing templates. Each post looked identical to a real supplement ad. Once the victim placed an order, the transaction moved through encrypted payment processors. Bitcoin wallets and peer-to-peer apps made the revenue trail almost invisible. Within hours, a courier dropped off a small package labeled as vitamins or study tablets. A DEA officer described the danger in plain words. Your teenager could order death with a few taps on their phone. It was not hyperbole. 5 out of every 10 seized counterfeit pills tested lethal. The victims rarely realized what they were buying. To them, it looked like a harmless capsule they had seen advertised on the same apps where they watched videos or ordered food.
Cartel stamp.
I'm a DEA agent. I cannot tell the difference between a fake one and a real one. So we need to remind parents, schools, caregivers, everybody in the community, have those conversations with each other, have them with your kids.
Forget says the
Every single batch of seized pills traced back to the same supply route, factories in Sinaloa receiving chemical precursors from China. The pills that appeared in Boston or New Hampshire classrooms had started as bulk shipments of raw chemicals shipped across the Pacific. From there, they were processed, pressed, and branded before being shipped north under the radar of legitimate trade. The discovery changed how law enforcement viewed the battle against the Sinaloa cartel. The enemy was no longer confined to border tunnels or hidden labs. It was operating through technology, exploiting every aspect of convenience culture. From the outside, it looked like business as usual. Social media ads, courier deliveries, customer support chats. But behind each interaction was a criminal network spanning 3 continents.
It's an operation. He says the vast Sinaloa network has deep roots in New England.
They're our public enemy number 1.
The directive expanded the reach of the Drug Enforcement Administration, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the Treasury Department. Agents could now apply for terrorism-based seizure orders, demand cooperation from foreign banks, and pursue extradition of overseas financiers tied to cartel operations. Under this authority, prosecutors built the first terrorism case based on chemical lye, precursors instead of completed narcotics. It closed a long-standing loophole that once allowed Chinese chemical exporters to hide behind trade compliance paperwork while feeding the cartel's drug pipeline.
Many members of the Mexico-based Sinaloa cartel as possible. New England saw the highest number of regional arrests at 171, with 49 in Massachusetts, 33 in New Hampshire. Connecticut saw the most at 64.
Do you think people would be surprised?
Former acting ICE Director Jonathan Fahey praised the move, saying it gave law enforcement the same tools once used to dismantle jihadist cells. His statement carried a reminder of scale. More than 100,000 overdose deaths per year demanded a response that matched the threat. To him, the fentanyl crisis was not a crime trend, but an attack on national security. The Treasury Department moved next. Using its new mandate, it froze multi-million-dollar accounts held by a Chinese state-affiliated chemical company and sanctioned 3 executives who managed precursor exports. Investigators found that the company's products had appeared in at least 9 DEA seizures over 4 years. The sanctions also reached 2 mainland banks accused of laundering proceeds through correspondent accounts in Hong Kong and Singapore. This financial lockdown cut a major artery in the Sinaloa-China supply chain, proving that the United States was willing to treat narcotics finance as economic warfare.
Who turned this into the deadly cocktail of fentanyl. The drug cartels then use pill presses that the Chinese have sold to them at cost to produce these pills, which are killing so many Americans, and then the money laundering aspect.
Political analysts began calling this pattern the chemical containment strategy. It combined arrests, sanctions, and trade penalties into a single national security doctrine. The goal was not just to catch traffickers, but to isolate their chemical suppliers and financiers from global markets. The same approach that once defined counter-terror policy, pressure on funding sources, technology restrictions, and international sanctions was now being used to attack the drug trade at its roots. Intelligence analysts soon mapped how the pipeline stretched across continents. Chemical precursors began their journey at Tianjin Port in China, were shipped to industrial hubs in Sinaloa, and then funneled north through Houston, Phoenix, and finally Boston. What had once been a straight border route had turned into a three-stage logistics system resembling legitimate supply chains. Maritime cargo replaced hidden border crossings, and commercial ports became the new front line.
Of it. The drug cartels 20 years ago used banks in Latin America. They're now using state-owned banks. So this is a strategic initiative by China to punish and damage the United States. And
ICE and Homeland Security data revealed a clear shift. Maritime smuggling of precursors rose 63% year over year, while land border seizures dropped 42%. Cartels had discovered that the sea offered anonymity and scale. Every container ship carried thousands of barrels. Only a fraction could ever be inspected. The strategy made enforcement far more difficult, forcing federal agencies to rely on chemical signature scanners and predictive AI to flag anomalies in cargo manifests. As these defenses rose, federal leaders made clear that the Boston raids were not the end, but the beginning of a broader campaign. DEA headquarters called the arrests a public safety victory and a national security warning. The takedown had crippled the Sinaloa cartel's East Coast supply chain, but it also revealed how deeply the organization had penetrated the United States. Nearly every major city now contained pieces of the same network: drivers, digital distributors, and crypto couriers operating under legitimate covers.
The bottom line is this is a Chinese operation. The drug cartels are the...
Officials emphasized that the cartel remained active in more than 40 countries and every U.S. state. They described its structure as a multinational corporation with a criminal business model. Fentanyl overdoses remained the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45. Each statistic underscored that Boston's success was only a temporary setback in a much larger conflict. Federal prosecutors began preparing a new wave of indictments under both RICO and terrorism statutes. The charges targeted not only the traffickers, but also the foreign suppliers and money brokers. For the first time, chemical exporters and logistics managers in China could face extradition requests under terrorism laws. In parallel, financial crimes units built cases against U.S. citizens who provided shell corporations and banking access to launder cartel profits. The Justice Department's intent was to choke every tier of the system at once. Public health officials added another dimension to the narrative. They pointed to the statistical drop in overdose deaths in the months following the Boston raids and credited the seizures with preventing thousands of potential fatalities. Yet, they also acknowledged that cartel networks could regenerate quickly. Production in Mexico continued, and digital dealers constantly rebuilt their channels on new platforms. This realization shifted federal strategy again, from reactive enforcement to preventive chemical defense. Boston's raid proved no cartel is untouchable. Hit subscribe now for more real-time DEA and ICE takedown updates across America.